All right, in this video, we are going to be completing the Unit 4 Linear Relationship Study Guide. This is for Pre-Algebra. So when you finish, if you haven't done so already, you need to submit the study guide into Canvas to confirm that you know how to input it for the test tomorrow. All right, so let's get started with question number 1. So to repair an air conditioner, the technician charges a service fee of $100 to come to the house. For each hour of work, $30 is charged. The question is this a proportional relationship and why? So when we're looking at a word problem, and if we're trying to determine if it's proportional, the proportional has to have a constant slope or rate of change and no initial value, no B value. So when I look at this and I read this, the service fee of $100, well, that is my B. That is the initial fee. So because this has an initial fee of $100, this is a not proportional relationship because B does not equal 0. Question number 2, the graph shows the distance Edgar biked for hours. Determine if the relationship is proportional, and if so, find the rate of change. So here we have a straight line. This line goes directly through the origin, 0, 0. So if the line goes directly through the origin here, it is a proportional relationship. So now let's find the slope of this line. So to find the slope, we went up 2 and we went over 1. So the slope, rise over run, is 2 over 1. So it is proportional and the slope is 2 miles per hour. Okay, determine whether the following linear relationship is proportional. So now we're trying to determine proportionality from a table. So what I'm going to look at is the B 0? Well, I'm not provided the B in my table, so what I'm going to have to do is work backwards. So first, let's see how my X values are changing. From 5 to 10, I added 5. From 10 to 20, I added 10. But what happened with my Y values? 10 to 15, I added 5. 15 to 25, I added 10. So these are actually changing at the same rate because 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 10 is 1. So if I want to calculate how to get to 0, well, to bring 5 to 0, I'm going to work backwards. So I subtract 5. And when I subtract 5, I get 0. And then when I work backwards on the Y values, I'm going to subtract 5 again, and 10 minus 5 is 5. So I notice that my B here would be 5, or my y-intercept is 5. So this is not a proportional relationship because B is equal to 5. And for it to be proportional, B must equal 0. All right. Question number 4. On iTunes, customers pay to download songs. Cost is shown below. Determine the slope for the relationship. So it tells you that the number of songs is your X. The amount charged is your Y. So we're going to label our X1, Y1, X2, Y2. We're then going to use our slope formula in order to find our slope. So $7.95 minus $3.95 divided by 4 over 2 simplifies to be 4 divided by 2. So our slope for this table is 2. Determine the slope of the given line. Well, we can determine slope from looking at our rise over our run. So we have our y-intercept 2, or a point where it crosses directly through the corner of a square. And we have another point where it crosses directly through the square. Do you see how this line crosses directly through that corner right there? So that's why we use that point to calculate our slope. So once we draw our right triangle, so how many times did we go up? 1, 2, 3. How many times did we go over? 1, 2, 3, 4. So my slope would be a positive 3 over negative 4, which simplifies just to be a negative 3/4. So the slope of this graphed line is negative 3/4. You could have also gone down 1, 2, 3 and over 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that would have put you right here. Either one of those points would have been acceptable to use for this line. All right, question number 6. Determine the slope of the line in the given table. So when we're trying to determine our slope, we're again going to use our slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Be careful, your y values in this table are on the bottom, but when we find our slope, our y values need to be in the numerator, the top. That's why we're careful when we label our x1, y1, and x2, y2. So 43 minus 52 over 6 minus 3 would simplify to be negative 9 over 3. And negative 9 divided by 3 simplifies to a slope of negative 3. So this would be our slope for this table. All right, question number 7. For each dog sitting job, Penny charges a fee for her gas plus an hourly rate. The graph shows how she calculates the fee for dog sitting. We need to write an equation in the form y equals mx plus b to represent the situation. So when we're trying to write an equation in slope-intercept form, we need to identify our b, our y-intercept. So we look at this line, and where does it cross this y-axis right here? Right here at 2. So our y-intercept, our b value is equal to 2. Then we have to find our slope. So when we're finding our slope of this line, we can choose this point, or we could choose this point, or we could choose this point, because that's where it's going through the corners. So if I chose this point, how many times did I go up? Well, that was 1 and 2. And what a lot of students did in my class is they saw this jump and they put plus 1. But look carefully at your x-axis. These grid lines, these axes, are going up by 1/2. So our slope, our rise over our run, would be 2 divided by 1/2. Or how many halves are in 2? Which is 4. So be careful. Make sure you look at your vertices when you have a graph. And if they're going up by 1/2, make sure you account for that. All right, our y-intercept. So we need to determine the equation for the table below. So when we're writing an equation for this table, we're first going to look for our y-intercept, and that's when our x is equal to 0. So when our x is equal to 0, our y value is 3. So our y-intercept is 3. Then to find our slope, we're going to do x1 and y1, x2, y2. Negative 5 minus 3 is our numerator, because those are our y values, negative 5 minus 3. And then our x values are 2 and 0. So negative 8 divided by 2, and my slope is equal to negative 4. When I write my equation, y is equal to negative 4x plus 3. Question number 9. The population in Loxahatchee, Florida in 2020 was 28,800. So that's our initial value. That's how many people are initially in the town. So that's going to be our B value. Each year, 250 people leave Loxahatchee for other cities. So write an equation that represents the population, where P is the population and T is the years since 2020. So we're going to write that in the form P is equal to M, which is our slope, times T plus B. So our M is actually a negative 250 because people are leaving the town, so we're decreasing. And the initial population is 28,800. All right, question number 10. Graph the following equation. Again, we're going to look really careful at this graph and notice that our axes are going up by 1/2 and not by 1. First thing we're going to do is graph our y-intercept of negative 2. Okay. Both axes are increasing by 1/2, not 1, so be careful when you use your slope. Our slope is 1 over 4. So we have a positive slope, so our line should be increasing. And from here, if I go up 1, this is 1. I have to go 2 jumps because it's 2 halves is equal to 1. To go over 4, I'm really going to have to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have to go all the way over here in order to have a slope of 1/4. Then I connect my dots with my line, and there is my equation graphed. So you're going to look for the correct y-intercept and look for the correct slope, and you'll have the correct graph. All right, Frank's Hot Dogs is testing a theory for upcoming hot dog eating competition. The information about the hot dogs in terms of time and minutes for one contest modeled in the table below is proportional. So they're telling you it is proportional. Find and interpret the rate of change and the initial value. So here they've given you a table. They want you to find the rate of change, and they want you to find the initial amount. Well, they kind of gave you a clue, or what, that the initial amount would be 0 because they're saying it's proportional. But we're going to find our slope, x1 and y1, x2 and y2. We do 22 minus 11 over 4 minus 2, and we have our slope of 5.5. So to find our initial value, what we do is actually work backwards, and if we subtract 11, we get 0, and if we subtract 2, we get 0. So our initial amount is 0, which makes sense because they told us that it is proportional, unless they're asking that question. But our m is equal to 5.5, our y-intercept is equal to 0, so yes, this is a proportional table because our y-intercept is 0. At how many middle school students have My School Bucks accounts to buy lunches? The equation y is equal to negative 3x plus 50 represents the amount of money y in Kenley's account after x number of days. Complete the statement to describe what happens to Kenley's lunch money. So if we're looking at the form y equals mx plus b, the initial amount in the account is the $50. That accounts for the starting point. She is spending $3 each time she buys a lunch, so it is decreasing. Kenley's account is decreasing because she spends $3 each day. And that one's pretty easy. Question 13. To rent a snowboard on vacation, there is a base fee of $25, and then you must pay $15 each hour. The scenario can be represented by this equation. The slope is, well, in this scenario, the slope is 15. So the slope is 15, and the y-intercept is your 25, because that's your constant. That is your base fee. That is your one-time fee. The $15 is each hour. Again, a pretty easy question there. Question 14. Determine whether the function is a linear function or nonlinear function. Now, every student in class told me this was going to be the easiest gimme question ever. So hopefully you all got it right. Linear means a straight line. Well, is that a straight line? No, that is a nonlinear function because the line is curved. Okay. Question 15. Determine whether the input-output table could represent the linear function. Could represent a linear function. So we're looking at our change in x over our change in y over our change in x. So these are our y values, our output values. These are my input values, my x. So is this linear? We add 1, then we add 5, then we add 10 for my y values. My x values, we add 1, then we add 2, then we add 1. Well, 1 divided by 1 is 1, 5 divided by 2 is 2.5, 10 divided by 1 is 10. So no, it is not. Okay, no, because the inputs are not increasing at a constant rate. Yes, both the inputs and outputs are increasing. That has nothing to do with it. No, yes, it could reach different output. Well, it's not a function, so we're stuck with the two no's. And what the reason why it's not linear is because the rate of change in the outputs to the change in the inputs is not constant. They were trying to trick you. No, it is not a linear function, but it has nothing to do with just the inputs. We have to look at the inputs and the outputs to determine if it's linear. Last and final question, question 16, determine which of the following equations represents linear functions. Linear means no exponents and no x in the denominator. So the y has an exponent, so we cross it out. No exponents, good to go. No exponents, good to go. Here, the x is in the denominator, that's not allowed, so that is not linear. Here, we have an x in the numerator, We're allowed to have an x in the numerator, just not the denominator. Finally, we have an x in the exponent, so it is not a function. That's it. Good luck on your test.